Welcome to Amir Shakti 5858 War and Love Reports. I am Amir Goodman. Time is 5 GMT, Wednesday, August 30, 2023. Safar 12, 1445, Southern Karachi. Following news are the latest news from NBC News. The race to evacuate is Hurricane Idalia, gained strength and based down on the US. The images coming into Dahlia, battering the Florida coast with heavy rain, flooding and high winds after hitting Cuba. Italia, now a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 100 miles an hour, but expected to strengthen into an extremely dangerous Category 3 by the time it slams Florida. Up to 15 feet of life-threatening storm surge in some places, more than 20 counties, with mandatory or voluntary evacuation orders. State of emergency declared in Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. When and where it will hit, we will track it with the help of Al Rocker. New images of students jumping from windows at UNC Chapel Hill to flee a deadly shooting, the suspect making his first court appearance, accused of killing his academic advisor. But what was the motive? The major announcement from the Biden administration: the first 10 popular drug Medicare is targeting for price cuts under new law. How much could you save? The price you pay with a pause on student loan interest ending this week. Some borrowers, like single mom, say they may not pay. What could happen? And there are not only MBA superstars, there are also working moms. How they are balancing on and off the course. Now details. Hurricane Idalia has strengthened into a Category 2 storm with maximum sustained winds of 100 miles per hour and right now picking up forward speed as it remains locked on a track expected to bring it ashore along Florida's northwest coast tomorrow morning, likely as a major Category 3 hurricane. The storm stretching more than 300 miles across as it spins across warm, open waters in the eastern Gulf, churning tropical storm force winds at its outer reaches. The National Hurricane Center warning of life-threatening storm surges of up to 15 feet, torrential rains, high tornado risk, 125-mile-an-hour winds expected when Idalia makes landfall along what's known as the Big Bend region. That little band or curve on the map between the Florida Peninsula and the Panhandle tonight. There are mandatory evacuation orders in place and more than a dozen Florida counties. NBC have a team on ground, but first a local. What are you seeing in terms of the storm track
Lester,
right
Idalia is
now?
starting to rapidly intensify right now. 300 miles south of Tallahassee, 100-mile-per-hour winds moving north now quicker at 16 miles per hour. 15 million people under hurricane warnings, watches, and tropical storm watches and warnings as well from Florida all the way into the southeast. By tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., a Category 3 storm coming onshore. The good news is this is going to be a rapid mover, but not before leaving some significant impacts. For example, storm surge up to 15 feet, especially right around Cedar Key, with surge accompanied by large waves which cause beach erosion. Wind gusts from 50 to 95 miles per hour, dangerous with trees falling, possible power outages from Wilmington to Sarasota, a risk of tornadoes wrapped in rain, hard to see. Rainfall amounts of 12 inches or more in the Florida Big Bend, and that's going to lead to significant flooding from Cross City all the way to Wilmington. Lester?
All right, Al, we've been talking about just how dangerous that storm surge could be as Idalia slams ashore. Our Tom Yamas is in Crystal River, Florida. That's about 80 miles north of Tampa, where they could see 12 to 15 feet of surge. Tom, good evening.
Lester, good evening to you. As you mentioned, this stretch of Florida is known as the Big Bend, and they are getting ready here for something they have never, ever seen before. A likely Category 3 hurricane that will be getting stronger and stronger up until the time it crashes right into this coast. Tonight, this destructive hurricane powering to shore, fueled by the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. The eye of the storm trained directly on Florida's western coast.
I don't have a really great feeling about it. I'm hopeful, but I just think that we're about due.
With Hurricane Idalia's torrential rains and forecasted gusts of up to 125 miles per hour bearing down, last-minute preps are at a fever pitch. Florida's governor mobilizing 40,000 linemen to try to keep the lights on.
And that's the ultimate goal, rapid restoration of power. This is a major hurricane.
The Keys and Fort Myers Beach already seen flooding. Crystal River is now in the crosshairs. This is somewhat new territory for you guys, right? A major hurricane hasn't come through this area, I've been told, ever.
Correct. We haven't seen anything like this in a very long time.
Idalia threatens to wash away parts of the Florida coast with record-setting storm surge. That's a hurricane's deadliest threat. The initial rush of water comes suddenly. 3 feet is considered life-threatening. At 6 feet, waves cause significant damage, breaking through doors and windows. At 9 feet, the floods move farther inland. A 12 to 15-foot storm surge would be catastrophic for low-lying communities here in Florida. That roof line, that's about 15 feet right there. And look where the water already is at high tide. Inches from the backyard. Now, a double threat from Mother Nature. A King Tide expected Wednesday. That's when the sun, moon, and earth align to produce tides 1 to 2 feet higher than normal. The view from the space station shows Idalia's monstrous size. But its destructive power needs to be seen up close. Look at these villages in western Cuba, submerged by rains just yesterday.
Very few people can survive being in the path of major storm surge, and this storm will be deadly.
First responders from Missouri, Virginia, and New Jersey already mobilized to the Sunshine State.
Take it seriously and be prepared.
In Tampa, all flights are grounded, and several hospitals have already been evacuated, while Tampa General rolls out this aqua fence to repel the storm water. Outside Greg Thompson's Big Bend bar, they're boarding up. And inside, it's last call.
Some people want to ride it out. We're leaving.
What do you think about the people that ride it out?
I wouldn't do it.
Too big of a storm.
Too big of a storm. Nobody can come help you.
Tonight, the clock is ticking. Time is running out to get out. And a stretch of Florida readies for a hurricane, the strength of which they've never seen before. Tom Yamas, NBC News, Crystal River, Florida. Crystal River, Florida.
And our Gabe Gutierrez is further up the coast where mandatory evacuations have been ordered. Gabe, what's happening there?
Lester, good evening. The mayor here of Cedar Key says that this is the worst forecast that he's ever seen for this area. Many businesses here have already boarded up, and some businesses have actually emptied out their lobbies because they expect this entire area to be underwater. Now, Cedar Key is a series of islands in the Gulf of Mexico, and officials here expect there to be a potential 10 10 to 15-foot storm surge. Now, mandatory evacuation order is in effect here. The deadline to leave was 4 p.m. today, but the mayor says about 100 people have decided to stay and ride out the storm. The National Weather Service and Hurricane Center say that this entire area could be cut off because of the rising water. So the mayor here, in a last-minute warning, is urging people to get out. Lester?
All right, Gabe, thank you. We'll turn to the deadly shooting now that has rocked the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. The suspect making his first court appearance today, a PhD student charged with killing his academic advisor. But what was the motive? Here's Julia Ainsley.
Tonight, new video showing the desperation at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Students climbing out of windows Monday following an alert of an active shooter. The suspect, Tailei Chi, a 34-year-old graduate student from China, making his first court appearance today on charges including first-degree murder and the shooting death of Zhu De-Yan, an associate professor in the Applied Sciences Department, who is the father of 2 young children.
We have determined that the victim and suspect knew each other, and the suspect went directly to the victim and then left Caudle Labs.
The shooting triggering a campus lockdown. Carter Scott took a class with the suspect last year.
My heart just kind of sunk to the bottom of my chest, because you don't ever think you're ever going to be in an active shooting situation, let alone have any sort of connection to someone who could do something like that.
He told us he never noticed any red flags. At Chi's apartment, FBI investigators combed through his belongings. Bashar
Please keep watching Amir Shakil 5858. We'll be right back after a short break. Thank you for sticking with Amir Shakil 5858. Now we will return to the rest of the news.
Is visiting his son, who shared an apartment wall with the suspect. He says armed agents stormed the complex during the manhunt.
It's like, God, is this real? And then I stepped again outside, and there was an officer with heavy gear.
Classes here remain canceled until Thursday, while the district attorney said he won't be seeking the death penalty. And police are still looking for the gun the suspect used and the motive. Lester?
All right, Julia, thank you. A big announcement today that may impact anyone who gets prescription drugs through Medicare. The White House revealing the first 10 medications that under a new law will be subject to deep price cut negotiations with drug companies. Tom Costello explains.
The 10 meds are among the most widely prescribed for those on Medicare. As drug company profits have surged, seniors are now averaging $6,500 out-of-pocket expenses and more, forcing many to choose between their meds or groceries. Retired teacher Robin Gilden has already spent $4,500 this year on 8 prescriptions, including Jardiance for diabetes.
I have to get these drugs. I have to get them to stay healthy. I just close my eyes and I pick them up.
Jardiance on the list for price cut negotiations, along with Januvia, Fiosp, and Novolog for diabetes, Eliquis and Xarelto, both blood thinners, Enbrel for arthritis, Imbruvica for blood cancer, Farxiga for diabetes, heart failure, and kidney disease, and Tresto for heart failure, Stelara for psoriasis and Crohn's disease.
Today is the start of a new deal for patients, where Big Pharma doesn't just get a blank check.
In 2003, the Republican Congress banned Medicare from negotiating lower drug prices. The new law empowers Medicare to do just that, negotiate. If drug companies don't participate, they face tax penalties. The pharma industry is suing to block the law, claiming it'll mean less money for new drugs, and politics should not dictate which treatments and cures are worth developing and who should get access to them. But after capping insulin at $35, polls show broad support for more price caps.
This is fundamentally about putting prescriptions back in the reach of people by making them more affordable.
Pending legal challenges, the new prices on these 10 meds should take effect in 2026, then more drug price cuts in 27, 28, 60 drugs over 4 years.
Lester? Tom Costello, thank you. This week marks 2 years since the deadly attack during the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. And today, Gold Star families who lost loved ones say they are still demanding answers. We get more from Ryan Nobles.
2 years ago, Herman and Alicia Lopez lost their son, Hunter.
It's something that no one thinks will ever happen to their family.
He was one of 13 U.S. service members killed during the ISIS bombing near the Abbey Gate at Kabul's airport in Afghanistan. He planned to join his hometown sheriff's office.
He didn't get that chance, and we just would like people to give us the truth of what happened and be honest with us.
The Lopez is one of several Gold Star families today demanding accountability.
I don't want to hear lies. I don't want to hear excuses from Joe Biden.
Many blaming President Biden.
Several presidents preceded Mr. Biden in this 20-year war, but none of them are to be held accountable for the withdrawal. That is he and he alone.
The chaotic U.S. withdrawal began as the Taliban quickly took over the country. President Biden has argued leaving Afghanistan was the right choice.
I was not going to extend this forever war, and I was not extending a forever exit.
Tonight, the Pentagon defending its response.
U.S. military commanders on the ground in Afghanistan made decisions that they could with the information that they had at the time.
And tonight, the Joint Chiefs Chair Mark Milley saying that the briefers have given the families, quote, every piece of information that they could, but saying that they do owe them accountability. Lester?
All right, Brian, thank you. In just 60 seconds, the pause on student loan interest accrual ends in a matter of days. What happens to borrowers who can't or won't pay? Back now with a ticking clock for student loan borrowers. Payments are set to resume in October, but as Brian Chung reports, some say they can't afford to pay, and others say they won't.
Josie Bridges is a single mom living paycheck to paycheck. It's hard enough dealing with rising prices at the store.
My student payments are sitting right now at about $400 is what they're expecting each month. So, I mean, that's my food budget right there.
The pandemic freeze on student loan payments allowed Josie to open up her own salon in Portland, Oregon. But with $4,000 in outstanding debt for her community college degree, she says she simply won't be able to make the monthly payments once they resume in October.
Now I realize that it's kind of out of my hands at this point. If I can't make it, I can't make it.
It's a game changer.
The Biden administration's plan to forgive up to $20,000 in student debt would have wiped Josie's slate clean. Instead, a challenge from 6 Republican states resulted in a Supreme Court decision in June striking down the plan after Josie had already put thousands of dollars in investments into her salon.
I'm disappointed and I'm confused. It's too inconsistent. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and that's kind of scary.
If the administration was able to cancel all the debt, what would that have done?
Giving me financial freedom.
The median student borrower has between $20,000 to $25,000 in outstanding debt, and for those over 40 million borrowers, they're going to be facing interest accrual beginning in September, with the first payments in over 3 years due in October.
It is officially time for a student loan repayment boycott.
Some taking to social media calling on borrowers not to pay.
Does the U.S. government just think we're going to go back to paying student loan payments? Like what? It's going to ruin my credit score.
Education Secretary Miguel Cardona says it's a risk people shouldn't take.
The loans are still there, and the repayment is still needed.
Failing to pay comes with serious consequences. Those in default face wage garnishing and big credit score hits. But for now, the government says borrowers won't face those penalties if they miss payments.
We know many of our borrowers are going to struggle to make payments, but we want to make sure that we're not sending their name to credit agencies. So we're going to hold them harmless for a year as they're getting back up.
Among longer-term options for relief, see if your employer offers repayment assistance programs and consider the SAVE program, which adjusts monthly bills based on borrowers' income. Josie's weighing her options, but says it's going to be tough either way.
At this moment, it's either come up with money to pay for these now student loans that I'm having to pay, or make it to where my business doesn't function as it needs to.
One of millions racing for the debt cliff this fall. Brian Chung, NBC News, Portland, Oregon.
There's much more to tell you about. Up next, why a top soccer official is now facing an investigation after his team won the World Cup.
आज नहीं तो कल स्मार्ट होम्स की तरफ सबने आना ही है, but 2 दिन के अंदर it was already unusable. It's as easy.
His team won the World Cup. We're back with growing controversy in women's soccer. The head of Spain's federation now under criminal investigation after kissing a player on the lips during a World Cup victory celebration. Megan Fitzgerald has more.
Tonight, outrage growing inside Spain.
We cannot express our joy on women without having some mud, interruption, and toilet.
As pressure intensifies for the head of the Spanish Football Federation, Luis Rubiales, to resign. It comes more than a week after he grabbed the head of star player Jenny Hermoso, kissing her on the lips as the team celebrated their World Cup win. Prosecutors have opened a criminal investigation into whether it was sexual assault. FIFA suspended Rubiales for 90 days, and in the last 24 hours, leading officials from the Spanish Football Federation held an urgent meeting demanding Rubiales resign immediately. It was an about-face for the federation. Days earlier, members applauded Rubiales when he repeatedly said, "I will not resign." Rubiales saying he was the victim of false feminism and the kiss was consensual. Hermoso firing back in a statement saying, "At no time did I consent to the kiss he gave me."
This has now really turned into a Me Too moment for us here in Spain, and not just as it relates to Spanish football and the women that are playing the sport, but also just in a wider scope of society altogether.
Meanwhile, the Spanish government has begun the process to try and force Rubiales out. Megan Fitzgerald, NBC News.
When we come back in a moment, we'll show you how one basketball all-star is balancing life while playing one of her best seasons yet. Finally, tonight we'll take you inside the WNBA. Blaine Alexander reports on the game-changing way these pro athletes are balancing sports and motherhood.
WNBA player Cheyenne Parker just made her very first All-Star team. The 31-year-old is also balancing another first, motherhood.
You're still nursing.
Still nursing.
Something that's even harder when she's constantly on the road. Her mom and fiance are often along for the ride to help with daughter Naomi through countless flights and away games. Like that time she was playing overseas in Italy.
I had to literally go out to the stands and grab her like, come on.
You got her from the stands.
I went to the stands, yeah.
And this is right before you hit the court.
Yeah. This was right before the game.
Working moms are no stranger to making it work, but for professional athletes, the load can be even heavier. Cheyenne delivered Naomi by C-section. Less than 4 months later, she was back at training camp, determined.
It was a very emotional time for me because I did have those doubts.
But this season was one of her best.
Did you ever picture yourself being a ball player and a mom?
No, never.
The WNBA has expanded benefits for mothers. Players now receive their full salary while on maternity leave, up from just 50% 3 years ago. The league also provides a $5,000 child care stipend. A major step forward, but many say it doesn't go far enough.
I think what's really important to know is that the WNBA is trying. The sports industry in general is slow to move.
At the Dream, it's a team effort. Naomi comes to practices, and every player is an honorary auntie.
Do you feel like it made you a stronger athlete being a mom?
Oh yeah, it definitely made me tougher, made me stronger. It shows just the strength and resilience of women in general. We are so powerful. In fact, I use that as my fuel.
Doing it all with her own personal cheerleader right by her side. Blaine Alexander, NBC News, Atlanta.
That's nightly news for this
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Woodman. Have a good life.